Alright guys, today I want to talk about how much wrist should be involved when we're hitting a forehand. Should we be rotating the forearm and the wrist as we're coming through the strike? Or should the wrist be passive and only after the ball's left our racket should the wrist be involved? It's an interesting question. I think I've got the answer and I think you're going to enjoy the video. So let's start by looking at one of my forehands, and you can see that I don't have a lot of lag. But as I'm coming into the ball, the angle between the racket and the forearm gets close to 90 degrees, right? A lot of the pros will have a lesser angle than that, a more acute angle. But I've got enough lag to get me a little bit of power there. But as we look at the contact point, that is now greater than 90 degrees, right? So the wrist is released somewhat into the contact point. And if we go a little bit further to my follow through, you can see that angle has increased even more. So I think the idea of the hands being passive at the point of impact is a good message and something that I want to be able to do when I'm hitting the ball, because that means I'm in the right place. It means I'm not having to rescue the shot and work my hands to sort of manipulate the ball from uncomfortable and awkward positions. So ideally I want the hands to be passive, but they're still releasing, they're still active, they're still moving. It's just that as I'm coming into the ball, if everything's lined up, I don't really have to do too much, and that's the ideal situation. But I want the hands to be alive and active because I'm not always in the right place, and sometimes I do have to start using my hand to manipulate the tennis ball. Here's a good example of when I feel like I got to use my hands a little bit more. We're playing service box games. It's a small space, and I'm having to really manipulate that ball and use my hands to feel and control the shot. Dude, how does that not hit you? Just to be clear, when I talk about using my hands, I'm talking about using my wrist, almost like if you were opening a door and it had a doorknob and you were turning it from right to left. So in these next clips, you're going to see me asking Slavi what he thinks about this, and we have a great discussion that I think is going to help you to understand this situation a little bit better. The forearm. So as I'm coming through here, I'm starting to move it through the shot, and then people are saying that, well, actually what happens is through the shot you don't want any movement. You want the wrist to be passive, and then after the shot, that's when the wrist can roll. But even though that sort of happens where the wrist is passive and sometimes you'll push through it, you sort of need to have it happening as a continuous motion through it, because you can't just go through and then decide after that you're going to just put a bit of wrist on it. Do you know,
let me tell you what I've actually thought about this topic quite a bit, okay? Because I'm always worried about being wrong about this.
Yeah.
I'm really big on a strong position, right? And I want people to be
come and jump out here.
Yeah, one sec. I'm always really worried about being wrong on this, and I'm really big on a strong position. It's what I call a strong position. It's the same one as like pushing a shopping cart or riding a bicycle or holding onto a, one of those guard bars on a boat, or like on a subway holding a strong position. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want that to be present during the actual impact. But what happens is that there actually is a little bit of movement here to get to the strong position, because you end up getting a little, what is it called, flexion or whatever. Boom. You end up getting a little bit of this as the racket's flagging a bit behind you if you're accelerating fast. And so you actually want to get your hand to the strong position, and then from there, right, once you've hit in the strong position, it has leftover momentum because it's traveling faster in your arm. So then you end up following through with this turn later.
Yes, because it's obvious
that's where the energy comes from. You don't want to do it like, you don't want to be stiff coming into contact and then like, oh, the ball's left my racket, let me do some weird thing.
Exactly. So if you think about this lag that happens where this angle usually gets to at least 90 degrees, right? Sometimes more. but here it's not. Here this angle is more than 90
Right.
degrees. So obviously the wrist has released somewhat, right? And it's releasing through the shot. It's just sometimes I'll come into the shot and I just, especially if it's a difficult shot, I'll just try and maintain the angle for a little bit longer. It's kind of push through it sometimes.
Especially if you think the timing might be off. Like if I'm not confident about the timing, I might freeze the arm and end up extending my hitting zone for much longer than I normally would because I'm not confident that I got the pinpoint, exact contact point that I think is going to happen.
Also, if you're out of position, you might have to use the wrist more in the middle of the shot, right? Just to manipulate the racket. So you don't want to just be coming in and then nothing happening. Like sometimes you got to actually be a bit more active with the wrist. But the fact that you're going from this position and then you're finishing in this position, that's happening all the way through the shot. It's just sometimes you just keep it a little more stable, like especially if you're hitting a
look, in emergency situations, if the ball is wide or something like that, I'll end up using a lot of hand, even though I don't like it. It's an emergency situation, so if the ball is wide or something, I might end up using quite a bit of hand here and not so much anything else because I'm on the run, I'm stretched out, right? And I don't have the time to get around the ball and be very strong through the contact.
Yeah. So I try to keep that racket still and to have the wrist, what's the word? Just kind of relaxed and passive. Can't think of a word there. It's been a long day. But yeah, I mean, most of the time I'm trying to be passive through it, but it's still a continuous move where I'm rotating the arm, right? I'm still rolling it. It's just sometimes I might push through it, and other times I might work it a little bit.
You might whip it.
To put it at the feet, or if I'm out of position. But if your wrist is just doing nothing, you're gonna struggle to control the ball, and you're gonna struggle to get racket speed as well, right?
Well, I think the less confident you are in what's going to happen with the shot, the slower you move the wrist, right? Like if you were, you think you're very precise about the contact point, you might actually whip quite hard, and the arm can only go so fast. So you're going to end up pushing the back part of the hand here through the shot quite a bit faster, right? If you want to get some extra whip on the ball and really get some action on it, right?
Yeah.
So, but if you're less confident, then you're probably going to be it's going to be probably a very slow movement.
Yeah, on the return and serve, you'll see this where you get that because you're not quite sure if the contact point is going to be there, or there.
No one's going to whip through a serve return. If a ball is coming at you, 130 miles per hour, it's going to be a very sturdy, kind of a blocking shot, and it's still going to come back with 100 miles per hour to the other side, right?
I think the video that people saw last was the one with Nitsan, where his hand is like this all the way through. So with him, I was trying to get him to feel that he can actually move it. But in reality, there's definitely going to be times where once he gets used to that, he's going to just go a little bit slower before he releases it. But if you're someone who can't release the racket, right, and you're just like this, you probably want to feel like you can actually move the thing.
Personally, I always think wrist movement is too much in most tennis players. Like not in Nitsan's case, but most people I work with is just they already have too much wrist. So I'm always trying to control it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm trying to slow that hand down, or don't.
Yeah.
Try to end up at strong position, but I still want you in a strong position here. So when you end up, you seek that strong position throughout the shot.
So like you're saying, when I start here, it's like I'm holding on to something. When I'm here, it's like I'm holding on to something. And when I finish here, it's like I'm holding on to something.
Yeah,
So I'm going to show you how similar this is to golf. And I think this is going to help you to just understand the concept a little bit better. With my golf swing, I'm looking to rotate my arms and get that club head moving as freely as possible. My right arm is supinating and pronating, and this one's pronating and supinating. My arms are rotating and my wrists are rotating through the shot here. That's the big picture. At the point of contact though, I want to make sure that in reality the club stays on plane a little bit longer than this practice swing. Right? I want to make sure that at the point of contact the club is facing where I want the ball to go and the hands are passive And there's a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 inches where I keep the club still. I don't move the hands too much. But if I don't think of this as part of the big picture, I don't get that club head speed. So I can't just think about keeping the hands passive all the way, and then once I get through the contact, then let them go. It doesn't really work that way. So think of it as this big picture swing, but at the point of contact, make sure the hands aren't too busy. Now, just like with the tennis shot, if I'm out of position or I want to manipulate that ball, I've got to be able to use my hands a little bit more. If I want to draw this around a tree or something, I'm going to work the hands a little bit more through that contact point to get the ball to do what I want it to do. So very similar to what I'm going through with my golf swing, and I hope that helped you with your tennis game.